The process of hiring DeMeco Ryans is what I want to focus on here. The result speaks for itself. You got one of the most qualified candidates. You got a candidate that has ties to the city, and you got a guy that the Denver Broncos wanted, Indianapolis likely wanted, although he didn't even give them a chance to talk to him. And you got that. So the result for now, it's as good as you can get. But we hear about process over results, and that's something we've heard the last couple of years from Nick Caserio. And I just want to focus. We'll get into the coaching staff. We'll get into the DeMeco Ryan situation. We got a 2-hour special, 6 to 8 p.m. on Sports Radio 610. Myself and Sean Pendergast. Fire up the Odyssey app. It is the Locker Room. Subscribe, like, spread, all that, whether you're a Texans fan or not. Number one source for daily Texans digital content. And what a time it is to be talking about this squad for the first time in a long time. It seems like the rest of the country thinks that the Texans actually did something smart, which is great. And that's because of the result. But the process to get to DeMeco Ryans is something that I want to dive into real quick. And specifically just the overall timeliness and tempo, both quickly and swiftly, and then methodically, and then back to being quick and swift. That the route that the Texans, the McNairs and Nick Caserio took to get to DeMeco Ryans, I think it gives you more reason for optimism as a Texans fan or someone who wants the Texans to do well, even more so than just hiring the right guy. Because if you look at the way in which we got to this result, DeMeco Ryans being head coach, you had 3 Sundays ago, Lovie Smith fired immediately on Sunday night, which was the right decision. It needed to be done, and they acted quickly. Compare it to last year. And last year, when Lovie Smith maybe made sense for where they were at that time, the way in which they got there was an absolute disaster. You didn't fire David Culley till the Thursday after the season. He went to the Monday press conference, and then it drug out. All of a sudden, here's McCown. All of a sudden, here's Flores. All of a sudden, randomly, you hired Lovie Smith. And while the hire felt a little bit better just because they didn't hire Josh McCown, the entire process sucked. But you started off this process with the firing of Lovie Smith on a Sunday. Then all of a sudden, in a matter of 3 or 4 days, you have a prime list of candidates. You put together a list of about 7 candidates in about a week and a half time, and it's a list of candidates that any top organization, if they were looking for a head coach, they would be looking at those candidates. So you quickly acted, fired Lovie Smith, and then you quickly found candidates. You spent time talking to them. And then when you realized that DeMeco Ryans was the guy that you wanted, instead of bringing in Shane Steichen and bringing in Jonathan Gannon and wasting everyone's time, you acted quickly. It was obvious that DeMeco Ryans was going to be the guy on Friday. You got him in town, and you got him hired. So you changed up the tempo. We talk about tempo a lot of times in offense and acting quickly and huddling up. The process of hiring DeMeco Ryans by the Texans was perfect. The tempo was fine, and you got your guy. So I think the way in which the Texans functioned, whether it be Nick Caserio, whether it be the McNairs, whether it be both, I think that's something that makes you feel even better, more so than just the result of getting DeMeco Ryans here. So I think they deserve a lot of credit for that. The dialogue along the way, I thought the Texans handled this perfectly. You had Hannah McNair come on the show, kind of, talk about some of the stuff that was being said. And I think the fact that DeMeco Ryans, who knows this organization better than anyone, who had multiple options, the fact that he chose this, I think it kind of eliminates the dialogue. And you always hear, if you're familiar with Kwame Brown, I think he was recently on the Pivot, did a really good job. But if you've ever heard Kwame Brown, the question he always has about Stephen A. Smith is, why was Stephen A. Smith at those colleges? Question I want to know from Stephen A. Smith is, what's the dialogue going to be now? What are we going to say? You said that no brother should take this job. You said this wasn't an appealing job. Where do we go from here? Do we pivot to, you're going to question DeMeco Ryans? Do you admit that maybe you just didn't know what was going on or what they were talking about? Like, do you say, well, the fact that he's from there, that means that it means a little bit more to him? Wouldn't it mean less to him if all this stuff were true? So where do we go from there? So we've talked about the tempo. We talk about the dialogue. I wonder where we go from there. The staff. There's already stuff coming out about DeMeco's staff. There's some names out there, including Troy Walters, the receivers coach for the Cincinnati Bengals. Boy, it hits a little bit harder. I'm speaking from a millennial POV. It hits a little bit harder when the coaches that are coaching the squad you play with in Madden. I remember Troy Walters out of Stanford. You try to put him in the slot on the Vikings. He was actually pretty good in Madden, probably even better than he was in real life. It hits a little bit harder when your coaches, you played with them in Madden instead of you saw them coaching when you were in elementary school. So you go from the AARP card to the I used to play with this guy in Madden. The staffing stuff's going to be cool. And the result, it kind of speaks for itself. And it was also a transparent process as well. So the hiring, good news, DeMeco Ryans is going to be here. He chose you over a lot of people. It was a very swift process with perfect tempo, whether it be fast, whether it be methodical, or whether it go back to fast. The result is there. It's going to be a very, very good time in the process. I think it speaks for itself. What's the result going to be? Who knows? You still got free agency. You got the draft, but stuff kind of lines up perfectly. Other thing is, and this wasn't planned, I don't think Nick Caserio knew, 14 months ago, 15 months ago that he was going to be hiring DeMeco Ryans. But if you look at last year's draft class, you had a few guys who showed you some good things on the defensive side of the ball, which is DeMeco's specialty. Those three guys weren't drafted for Lovie Smith's system. In fact, I think those three guys actually fit perfectly into DeMeco Ryans' cover three heavy system. You're going to have Derek Stingley playing the system that we've been talking about. A lot of Texans fans, a lot of Texans media types have said, yeah, Sauce Gardner, pretty good ball player, getting all the respect that he deserves, but he's playing in the right system. Could you imagine if Derek Stingley played in the system that Robert Saleh has? Well, he plays in that system now. So we're going to get to see what Derek Stingley looks like in that system. Jalen Petrie. I think Jalen Petrie is going to really, really like the DeMeco Ryans system. I think he's going to like playing for DeMeco Ryans. You're going to see him close to the line of scrimmage. You're going to see a lot of stuff that we wanted to see all year with Jalen Petrie. And then you have Christian Harris, who can just flat out run a little bit nasty. That's right up DeMeco Ryans' alley, because that's where his background is. So the second year guys, the defensive guys, I think they benefit as much as anyone. The city benefits because you have that special feel. Ownership benefits because of the result, but ownership and Nick Caserio, they also benefit because of the process and the way you got to see the process and how competent and smooth and swift and appropriate of a process it was. So you got to give them credit. And Nick Caserio, he benefits too, because he has a guy who's actually going to know how to coach ball. And I think it's someone he's actually going to like to work with. We talk about Nick Caserio, does he want this guy? Does he want that guy? How much control does he want? I think if you put Nick Caserio in the right situation with the right guy and the right layout, I think Nick Caserio is also going to enjoy working with DeMeco Ryans. So it's going to be real interesting to see how this whole thing plays out. Press conference is going to be on Thursday. We'll be out there live. We'll get you some exclusive content out there as well, and you can check it out here in the locker room on YouTube, top source for Texans digital content. Also check me out 10 to 2 Monday through Friday, Sports Radio 610 in the loop. And also going to be on with Sean Pendergast tonight. So there's a lot to get into. There's a lot of excitement going on around town. Process results these nuts because they were both perfect in this situation. The rebuild is picking up. Business is picking up. Excitement is picking up. And it's going to be one of the most exciting off seasons that we will ever experience around here. And to better days ahead. No guarantee, but no matter what happens, just remember, we're all in this together. Have a good one.